Hi, Jeremy. Thanks so much for joining me here today.
Hey, David, it's a pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, honestly, my pleasure, my privilege. We got connected on LinkedIn. I can't remember how long ago now, but it was curious to see that I found someone who's in the recruitment industry, but focused specifically on insurance. So for me, my mind went, I need to connect with this person. I need to pick their brain about this. So why don't we start there, Jeremy? Why don't you talk a little bit about, your career history, where you are now, and why you picked recruitment in the insurance space?
Yeah, sounds good. So basically, I run a recruitment firm called Hello World Recruitment, and I started this business 2 years ago in Canada. The reason why I decided to focus on the insurance brokerage industry is that there is a skills shortage in this market in Canada across all big cities. And to me, if you run a business, you generally want to make an impact. It's not about only about money, reputation, glory, etc. But what I want to do is make an impact. And I really feel that in this industry, you can make an impact because if you are well connected, you can bring opportunities to both sides, candidates to bring them some really interesting challenges and clients. You can change a business by hiring the right people. And it works for both big companies and small companies. Even I have a lot of small companies in my client portfolio. And I know that when we hire one person that has all the qualities of a great producer, of just a great insurance broker, I know that we have an impact straight away on the sales and the bottom line. So, yeah, that's what I do. Overall, to give you a high level overview of my career background, I started straight out of uni. I started not a recruitment business, but a hospitality business. So I was running two restaurants back in France. And then I moved towards the recruitment industry about 2 years later. And I've been in the recruitment industry for the last 8 to 9 years. So, yeah, that's basically what I've been doing. I did that across Europe, 5 years in Australia, and 2 years here in Canada.
Wow, so that's quite the jump from hospitality, restaurants to now jumping into the recruitment space. I am curious to maybe dig into that just a little bit here. What was the reason you left hospitality?
The reason was that so hospitality industry is an amazing industry. You get to be with people all the time. You get to work in the food industry, which I love food, so it's just an amazing industry for me. However, it is that industry where you work at night, you work during weekends, and at some point, it really didn't align with my priorities. At that time, my wife was in another country. She was in Belgium. So every weekend I wanted to go there. But I mean, it's difficult to align that with a business that you want to grow. So at some point, I had to make a decision, and I decided, okay, I'll just sell my shares of this business, and I will try a new adventure.
Yeah, wow, good for you. And it's funny because hospitality, okay, restaurants, okay, hospitality and restaurants in France. That's that's la creme de la creme. That's the that's the mecca of the food world.
Yeah, true. In a way, I mean, we have competition from Italy. We were talking about that earlier, but I guess France is an ideal country to do that. We have amazing chefs. It's part of our culture, and it's also about like having the whole infrastructure and industry like suppliers. I remember I used to work with local farmers. We were working with like organic food, and it's all about quality, and we have that quality. We are lucky to have that quality in France. So I really enjoy that part of my career.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'll get you to switch back to talking recruitment and insurance for the remainder of the conversation here. When we talk about the insurance world, there's so many different roles within that, right? We have underwriting, we have claims, we have loss prevention, obviously producers, agents, brokers. Those are the folks that I interact with most often here. When it comes to helping producer candidates or helping brokerages find good producers, what are the basics? What are some of the things that a producer should have on their mind, or somebody who aspires to be a producer or a broker? What should they be thinking about when they start that journey?
Yeah, good question. So I guess first of all, you need to figure out if that's for you. that's that's a given. Um, Being in the insurance industry or working as a broker or as a producer, so just to be on the same page, a producer to me is someone that's going to be selling insurance products, that's more on the sales side. So I guess if you're not the type of salesperson, then I don't see the point of going towards that direction. So that's the first thing. You need to like people because it's a people industry. And you're going to be working with clients all day long. You're going to be working with your team because you have to have some sort of support, administrative support, but also to when you place the risk, most of the time you'll have a marketer working with you. And if not, you'll have to be in contact with the underwriter. So yeah, it is definitely a people business. Um, these are really two strong points, I would say. The other thing is you have to be kind of passionate or at least be interested in an industry, according to me. I guess you can be a producer that's selling insurance industry to any sort of industries and companies. That's true. But I have noticed that some of the best producers that I've come across, they generally are passionate about a specific industry. The other day, I was talking to someone that I placed recently, actually, and she's from a transportation background. She worked many years in the transportation industry. She sold a lot of insurance policies to transportation companies, and that's her bonus and big plus or added value in the market. So, and I guess she can connect with people because she knows the wording, she knows what we're talking about, and she can sell better. Likewise, I was talking to a construction specialist. He studied architecture before, so he's in a position where he can sell some stuff that he understands and connect better with his clients. So I guess industry knowledge is something that is a strong plus, and also that makes your job more interesting, I guess, because if you have some sort of passion in such industry, then you can enjoy better selling insurance products in this industry.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, Jeremy. The world that I was in before I got into insurance production, I came from that landscaping, construction, contracting side. So I was boots on the ground, wheelbarrow in my hands, finishing cement, doing basement renovations, and the rest of it. So when I switched over into insurance, even though I was a commercial insurance specialist and I could work with basically any kind of business that our underwriting guidelines would tolerate, I found that it was so much easier, so much faster to close a new opportunity if it was a contractor or construction client, because I didn't have to go through this very difficult process of trying to take very technical insurance information and find a way to make it resonate with a buyer. I just already had that. I know what's important to a construction business owner. I know what's important to the electrician or the plumber or the tradesperson. So I found that connection very helpful when I switched into selling commercial insurance. And it's a big debate. I see this all the time. Where, people say, should you be a generalist or should you be a specialist? Right? Because you can sell basically to anybody that your underwriting guidelines will tolerate. So how do you make the decision to pick a single industry to focus in on? And the examples that you gave are marvelous. You know, that woman who came from the transportation industry, she already has connections, she has a network, and she speaks the language. It's going to be that much easier for her.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
fantastic.
align your passion with your skills at the same time. So you can only be good at that.
That's true. So I guess the flip side of that, what should people be avoiding when when they're making those types of decisions, right? You talked about some of the things that would indicate that somebody would be good for a producer or a sales role, passion for people, passion for an industry, motivated by going out and hunting, closing new business. Who might not be a great fit for that? Who might be a better fit for maybe underwriting or claims or something like that?
I'd say typically, if you have more like an analytical brain, then I would suggest you go towards risk management, towards underwriting. And I have seen a lot of these candidates. Um, I guess it's a better fit for them, definitely. If you feel that you're not comfortable selling, if you feel that you're not a people person, like I would say, generally these are more analytical profiles, and yeah, it's definitely a better way for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I've seen people who are very successful in the producer role who maybe they are introverted by nature. Maybe they are someone who's more analytical. They prefer to look at things by themselves. They like crunching numbers. They like the risk management side of it. And I wouldn't say it's impossible for them to perform well in the producer role, but there's a different set of challenges, and you're not going to get the same type of support that's available to you just from the company, right? And that's been my experience. It sounds like it's not too dissimilar from what you've had to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, I agree with you. Although, like, being introvert doesn't mean you can sell well. I have seen a lot of great salespeople, and they are introvert. Being analytical, in the same way, doesn't mean that you can't sell well. On the contrary, these are qualities that can become a strength while selling, while building relationship with your client. So it's not black or white. I guess there are more qualities you have to have, and to me, you absolutely need to be resilient. Without that, you can't be a producer. Resilience is key because you will have, like in any sales role, you will have your ups and downs, right? And someday you're going to be doing extremely well and your dopamine level is going to be extremely high. But that also means that once you have the rush, then it goes down, and some other day you will have some failure, some you will be losing a deal, for instance, and then it goes really down as well because your hope were there and now reality is here. So it's the opposite reaction, and you can be really struggling with that. I have seen myself a lot of salespeople struggling with that, and it's like in the recruitment industry, you have your success days and your failure days, and in the recruitment industry, there is a lot of people coming. There is no barrier of entry as long as you can speak to people. We don't have any license like you have in the insurance brokerage industry, and um, so there is a lot of people coming to this industry, but the vast majority of them, they won't remain in the industry because they can't cope with these ups and downs. So it's the same for being a strong producer. Over time, you have to be resilient. You have to accept that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and that's part of the game.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we work on when we work with producers is exactly what you were talking about. You have these highs that can feel really high, and you've got these lows that can feel very low. So
Yes.
what we try to do when we're working with folks is to bring them to a baseline that doesn't really change all that much. So yes, you're going to have those big wins. Yes, you're going to have those low losses, but what can you do to uh, remain sort of baseline level of excitement at all times? So you're not deviating too far one way or the other, because the higher you are one day, the bigger the crash the next.
True. It's tough to manage, because
Yeah.
when you have a strong win that you were expecting, then you just want to celebrate. You just want to live it, right? And yeah, like myself, I'm always like that. I just want to live it and celebrate. But you're right. It's you have to find some sort of balance. To me, to manage that, I try to manage my expectations. So sometimes I see that it's all going green light, right? But I'm just making sure I try um, to be thoughtful about it and try to not to be too much excited about it. I know that when you have your pipeline and a lot might go well, but I know that there is always something going wrong. So that's how I try to manage my expectation, keeping in mind that it's a statistics game. So at least one of the things in the pipeline is going to go wrong.
So, for someone who's just thinking about entering the industry, or maybe someone who's in the industry but on the relatively more junior side, it can be so overwhelming with how much different information exists out there. When it comes to the insurance industry, it's so big. You have big national or international companies, you have very small brokerages, right? You've got kind of
Yeah,
everything in between, right?
true.
Even the differences between being an agent or a captive agent versus being a broker, the licensing differences, all those things. Because there's so much information and it can take so long to wrap your head around it, what can somebody who's newer in the industry or thinking about entering the industry do to understand the job market better? How can they learn fast so they can make good decisions?
Yeah. First point, I'd say it's all about networking. So there is a lot of events out there organized by some insurance brokerage associations, and it's the best way, I would say, to connect with people, to understand what they are doing, and see if that could work with your personality. You get straight away some feedback from people, professionals doing the job. So I guess that's the first step I would do. The second one would be about connecting with people that are um, like recruiters that are always speaking to the market. That's what we do day in, day out as recruiters. We speak to clients, we speak to candidates, and dozens of them every week. So I guess obviously you have to pick your recruiter or recruiters, because, as I said earlier, it's kind of a jungle. You can become a recruiter easily. So there is good and bad, like in anything else, right? So just make sure that you connect with the right recruiters. You can have a referral from friends, from colleagues, or you can just follow some recruiters on LinkedIn and see what their content is about. You can challenge them over the phone, trying to see if they know their industry, you see. Um, and some of them, they produce some content like I've just done the salary study in Montreal. So I interviewed 600 insurance brokers in Montreal, in Montreal area, and at the end of the day, I produced this salary guide that is helpful, I guess, for insurance brokers to understand. Okay, so I'm just going to go into this market, starting a career as an insurance broker. So what's the earning potential? And you can see that through the guide. Like if you start as a junior, you'll see what you can make on the personal line side or on the commercial line side. And then you can see your career growth and how your salary is going to grow over time. So that's the idea. Um, Producing content for me is important because as a recruiter, I think that's also my role, not only placing people, but also providing that information back to the market. Um, I guess there is no one in a better position like myself where I speak to candidates every day and they speak to me about their salary. Who else is going to do that information research, insights job? I don't know, maybe some association, obviously, but I guess I can be part of this game, definitely.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And that asset, that study that you've pulled together, we'll talk a little bit more about it later. I think it's a great idea because, like I said before, this space can be so mysterious, right? It's an industry that's been around for a long time, very mature in a lot of ways, but so much conflicting and confusing information if you just do things yourself. And I imagine that the job hunt is like that too, right? If you're somebody who you put on your cap and you say, okay, I'm going to go now be an interviewing machine. I'm going to go apply for as many jobs as I can. You can get very fatigued very fast because of all the different opportunities and not really knowing what's a good home for you. You talked a little bit about from the candidate perspective what they can do to know the market a little better, to understand what kind of a role is a good fit for them. Why don't we talk about it from the, let's say, agency owner, brokerage owner, sales
Yes.
leader within who's looking for good candidates? What are the things that because you've got clients in that role, the good clients that you have, what are they thinking about? What questions are they asking?
You mean in interviews?
No, I mean, before they actually maybe go to market, when you have those first conversations with them, what are they thinking about? Who are they looking for? What do they have right? And what are some of the maybe things that they are thinking not the best way about?
Okay, okay, interesting question. Um, so obviously there is a lot of different clients and a lot of different insurance brokerage companies. So I guess the first point is what is the level of recruitment maturity they have, right? Um, because some of them, I would say, they are a bit old fashioned in their way, and they won't be proactive about attracting talent. They won't be as digitalized as they could be. um, they won't be building that reputation and employer brand that will be helpful for them to attract talent and also convert their offers into accepted offers. So I would say that's one part of the market, which is not like the vast majority, but there is a few of them, obviously. There is another part that is more advanced towards these topics, as I said. Um, so I'd say, yeah, that's the biggest thing is as an agency owner or leader in the insurance brokerage industry is the big question is what is your recruitment strategy? Do you have one at least, right? And are you being proactive or reactive, right? And also another thing that I have noticed is how do you see the market and how do you see candidates is a big part of your success. So, what I mean by that is two things. One, do you have knowledge of the market situation? What's available? What skills are available? At what price? All this information is necessary to make good hiring decisions, right? But also what people are expecting from a job, not only from their job, but also from the company, from their management. All these stuff you need to be aware of to make the right hiring decision and at least to be competitive because as you said earlier, there is a lot of different companies in this industry, small brokerages, really like multinational brokerages. So it is important to be aware of the market insights. That's also what I do and what I share with my clients to help them making better decision. The second aspect I wanted to share about that is Are you considering these expectations from the candidates when you interview them? And are you trying to fulfill those expectations? To me, it's super important. It's just playing with the data that you have. You play the board the way it's led, right? And I see some big mistakes from some clients sometimes where they think that, or they see the interviewing process as an exam, for instance, you see? And to me, that's a big mistake because they think that they have some sort of power over the candidate. They have the privilege of offering a job. That's true, but that doesn't mean that the interview should feel as an exam. No way. To me, it's a two-way street, right? Where you have the expectations of the candidate on one side, the expectation of the employer on the other side, and we need to understand this is the interview is the opportunity to understand if the expectations are matching. If they are, that's great. That means there is an offer, and then we hire the person, right? If not, then we have to move to other candidates or to other opportunities.
So that's an interesting point. So you're saying that as the prospective hiring manager going into the interview, don't treat the interview like it's just a hardcore exam of the candidate. But I guess my question goes to how much of that responsibility is on the candidate as well in the interview to maybe have an interviewing strategy or to be equipped with a couple of good questions that help open it up so that it is that two-way street rather than just a one-way interview. Maybe you can dig into that a little bit. How much of the responsibility is on the candidate?
True. I think, yeah, once again, it goes both ways, and the candidate is responsible for not being examined as well, right? So that means to me that you have, as a candidate, you have to connect as a person. You have to prepare the interview and prepare some icebreakers, for instance. You see? And to me, it's just necessary to do that. Most of all, you have to connect as persons. When you pick up a job, you most of the time you don't pick up a brand, the company's reputation. You pick up what or who your manager is, and if you see yourself working with this person, if you see yourself growing alongside with this person, um, learning from this person. So once again, it's a people business. So you have to connect as a person. You have to come with your icebreakers. You have to pick up on some information that is shared within the conversation where, when it's getting personal, when it's getting you, if the interviewer is talking about children, about his or her home, these are things you need to pick up on, and you have to jump on this opportunity to connect as a person. And yeah, that's you're right. It's a shared responsibility.
I see, particularly with salespeople, producers, brokers, agents, people who are going to be client facing, responsible for positioning their company as the best solution to a potential client. I see very many parallels with going into an interview. And the person who's interviewing you is the prospective client, and you are selling yourself as the right fit for their company. And oftentimes, the best salespeople, they're not just brochures talking about themselves, they're asking questions and framing and controlling the conversation in a confident way. So, to me, it sounds like what you're describing right now is a sales choreography. It's the candidate comes in and
Yes.
what you say is, they're listening. Oh, they just mentioned they have children. Okay, as a salesperson, I know that's a data point for me to build some rapport, maybe even revisit later in the conversation. And it also gives me a clue into maybe the kind of person I'm talking with. Maybe they are family oriented. Maybe they are somebody who's going to make decisions not solely themselves, but they bring in a team to make a decision. These types of things are what comes to my mind when you're having just that small talk. What are those little hooks?
Yeah, that's true. And just a quick thing, you it's not necessarily too much of a strategy, right? To me, it's also about being genuine about it. And, it's not a given to everyone to be able to pick up on those details and try to jump on the opportunity to connect with the person as a person, right? Um, we mentioned introverts earlier. Typically, introverts wouldn't necessarily jump on the opportunity and try to dig deeper from a personal aspect. So yeah, I think you have to be genuine about it, and even if you are an introvert, see that as an opportunity to understand more about your potential new manager, and it's just a great opportunity to see if you can work with this personality. And to me, it just after a while it just become natural. You'll try to at the first interview, and then you'll see it just becomes natural.
No, that's a great point. Now, when you're working with candidates and you're helping them get placed for a potential interview with a company that looks like it might be a good fit, and they have doubts, uncertainties, and maybe they're not expressing it, but you're picking up on it that they don't feel super confident going into an interview. Is there a level of support that you provide them when it comes to getting ready for that interview so that they can go and really ace it, help reduce their anxiety? Like, why don't you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, remember, I've been in this industry for the past 10 years. I placed engineers, I placed financial controllers, CFOs, insurance brokers, etc., etc. And so one common point I have come across over the past years is that a lot of the interview questions are the same. Okay, whatever industry you're in, whatever job you do, there is a part of the interview questions that are the same. So, for instance, explaining your career path, explaining why you moved from company A to company B, it's always going to be there. It's an unavoidable question, right? Because people want to understand your trajectory, they want to understand your motivations, and how you make decisions as well. That has a huge impact on what they can offer you in the role, and if they can offer something to you that will fulfill your expectations. So that's one typical question. um, Another thing I do is I prepare specifically on insurance brokers questions. Some of them are always going to be there, like the industry you work in, I mean your client's industry, like the size of your premiums, like your success story as well, like if you've made a big sale over the last few years, and you have to be able to explain those success stories as well. So basically, when I work with candidates, I give a pack to them. I send them what I have collected over the last few years, and it gathers all these questions from a soft skills perspectives, hard skills perspectives as well, and that helps them to start preparing for the interview. Then, after they read through that document, I give them a call, and we try to do an interview so that I can see how they respond to my questions as an interviewer, right? And and I learned a lot through that process. It is definitely time consuming, but I think it's time well invested, because sometimes when you ask easy questions like what made you move away from your previous company, or why are you interviewing today, when you ask those sort of questions, sometimes you don't get really good answers. Another question that is always, not always, but sometimes people struggle to respond to this question is, what do you do? it sounds like an easy question, but I believe everyone is capable of providing a good answer to the question, what do you do? But the thing is, you have to tell a story if you want to be able to compete with other insurance brokers for the specific role that you want. If you want to maximize your chances, you have to tell a story. And that is a big part of the preparation I do with candidates is the ability to tell a story because most candidates they will talk about the tasks, they will talk about what they do day in day out, um, which is great, but when they tell me that, I generally feel like, yeah, you just told me, you just explained me what an insurance broker does, and it doesn't differentiate yourself from the competition. You see what I mean?
Right.
So what I generally do is that I bring them through a model that is well known across the industry, which is the STAR model, which stands for situation, tasks, actions, and result. To me, the biggest mistake is that when you answer to the question, what do you do? Most of the time, you will go through the tasks and actions. But the ones that are making this difference, they actually put things into perspective in their context, and they are able to tell the story. So, for instance, when I was working in a restaurant, I could say that I was actually working as a waiter. I was providing food to them, etc., etc. That's what a waiter does, right? But I could also put things into perspective and tell a story about how I got involved in this industry, how I became a restaurant owner, and that makes it more interesting to understand, as we mentioned earlier, the path behind the scene, right? And then just to finish on the STAR model, the R stands for result, as I said, and that's also a part that you can easily prepare for, but most people don't do it, right? So basically, the results are tangible facts about your outcome, what you did at work. As I said, it is easy to gather that information and it gives credibility to your pitch, to your story. It's a huge bonus. For instance, you can mention your sales performance. You can mention your best success story when it comes to selling a policy, or biggest challenge, how you overcame that challenge and what the outcome it produced. Sometimes I understand that it's not always easy to have stats on your performance, but I'm sure that there is always a good story to tell, whether you got a promotion, whether you got a recommendation from a client or a referral. There is always something that is tangible and that illustrates your success. To me, that's a huge differentiator.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that you brought up the STAR framework, that way
Yes.
of telling a good story, because it's such a simple way to make sure that you actually are covering all the bases, and that there's some kind of emotional resonance to what you're saying. So not just task oriented, not just actions, but from start to finish, including the results. And you just mentioned a second ago that sometimes it's not easy to have those quantifiable metrics, right? Those hard numbers that indicate a level of performance. This might maybe not come across as eloquently as I want it to, but that could actually work to your advantage in a certain sense, because I think, too often we believe that humans make decisions entirely rationally, like they're just financially driven or they're just numerically driven, when often that's not really the case. They make emotional decisions and then they backfill that decision with logic. They look for reasons to justify their emotional response. So, usually, when I'm working with producers, of course, there's going to be a certain set of rational, logical reasons why a potential client will work with you, but usually there's an emotional reason that they're shopping around in the first place. And there was just some recent event that instigated them to hit the market. So,
Mm,
what are those emotional reasons? How can we address those? So, even if you don't have those hardcore quantifiable metrics, you can still speak to alleviating frustration, removing stress, simplifying workflows. These types of things where people think, oh man, that's actually going to make my life a lot easier.
true. Yeah, 100%. And especially when you are a producer, I mean, obviously, this sales world is really like performance oriented. Is really like KPIs driven. It's easy actually to quantify sales. It's easy to quantify calls, meetings, these sort of metrics. But as you said, it's not only about those metrics, and it's also about the support you bring to those producers, because in some environments, recently I got an offer for a candidate, and she had another offer on her side. And so basically my offer was about joining an insurance brokerage that's mid-sized, I would say about 100 employees, and with the entire support system. They have like a 15 people administration team. So in this sort of environment, you know that you're going to get access to um, people that are going to be sorting out a lot of your job. A lot of the administration tasks are actually looked after by this team, right? On the other side, she had an offer in a far smaller company where they barely had an administration team. So you see, that is, as you said, that's not only about KPIs. It's also about your environment. Is your environment set up for success so you can focus on bringing value by meeting clients, by converting them, instead of focusing on the nitty gritty of putting some notes in the system or sorting out some insurance certificates? I mean, that can be done easily by an admin team.
Right, right. This conversation is reminding me about a situation that I found myself in when I was producing. I was selling commercial lines, and I had a prospect come in once. They've been running a small landscaping business for a number of years, and they decided now to finally actually get a commercial general liability policy for their company. And I don't know if it was a stroke of luck or what it was, but I was compelled to ask the question. Why are you doing this now? You've been running this business for a number of years without the insurance. I think you should have had it from the beginning, but you are only making this decision now. Why are you doing that? And the response I got was, I'm sick and tired of just doing small projects all the time. And the only way I can get bigger contracts is if I have a certificate of insurance that I can produce and show these bigger clients, or even if I wanted to work for a municipal project, they need to see that I have proof of insurance. So now I want to make that switch so I can start getting those bigger projects. And the benefit there for me was, huh, I wonder how many small landscaping companies don't realize that this is a good way to get their foot in the door for bigger projects.
Mm,
So every time I would do, because I also sold personal lines. So if I was talking with a personal lines client after that, and let's say they brought up that they're in landscaping, they have a landscaping business. It's them, their brother, and a cousin, and they've been doing this for a few years. We can now pivot and have that conversation about, well, wouldn't it be nice to get bigger projects? So you don't just have 2 or 3 day projects. You can land something that's 2, 3, 4 weeks long, 3 or 4 times the amount of revenue that you'd be doing on those projects. Well, wouldn't that be nice? Well, here's another thing for you to consider. The only way to get those projects is by getting commercial general liability insurance, so you can produce that certificate of insurance as proof that you're covered. And so just that small insight, I was able to more confidently talk with those landscaping clients, or those potential landscaping clients, because now they saw their insurance as a strategic investment rather than just a cost that they can do without.
true. Yeah, that relates to what we were saying earlier. There is an opportunity in market knowledge. You had your market knowledge on one side, and you decided, okay, I'm going to turn that into an opportunity. And that's what I said about producers earlier. That's a good quality of the best performing producers is to have market knowledge so that they can connect better, they can be more efficient, and in a way, in this particular example, they can actually show an opportunity that their clients were not even thinking about in the first place. So yeah, that's brilliant. I like that.
Yeah, and you know what? Uh, I didn't have quantifiable metrics. I couldn't tell them how big those projects would be or how fast they would land those projects. But just being able to tell that story with an emotional resonance was enough for them to say, yes, my life would be easier if I had bigger projects.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We're talking about the best way to maximize success as a candidate looking for jobs, knowing the market, working with a specialized recruiter such as yourself. That salary study that you talked about to give somebody more knowledge about what they're actually getting themselves into. So, again, those are all positive things, how to maximize success, how to be more informed. Why don't we talk about some of the pitfalls? What are the things that somebody should avoid, or where do people go wrong in their search for their next opportunity?
Okay, so it's going to be quite straightforward. It's just the opposite of everything we said earlier. So number one is lack of market knowledge, right? So if you don't know the market you're in, then how are you going to be able to make the best decisions? Okay, so that's why I said earlier you need to be connecting with either like you need to go to networking events in this specific industry, or you need to connect with ex-colleagues, friends in the industry, and also with recruiters who are um, doing the job day in day out of speaking to these people, so they can share your they can share some information with you, sorry. So that's one, which is market knowledge. The second one would be about it would be about going too fast, I would say. Sometimes, I mean, a lot of times actually, I have noticed that people get too fast because they get too emotional. That's also a thing I try to help candidates with is remember that emotion is a big part of human being, obviously, but it's not necessarily the best way to make the best decisions, right? So, for instance, when you receive an offer, generally people get very emotional, very flattered about the offer, very like um, rushing, rushing emotions, and then they make a move. But like the other day, I had this exact situation where I had a candidate and she was in this state of emotion, and I told her, you know what? Let's take our time, let's ask for 2 more days to the employer so that you can make your decision at the end of at the end of the week, let's say. And so she got another offer as well during that time. So she had 2 offers in hand, so more options to choose from, right? And then after like a couple of days, the emotion went down. I encouraged her to connect with friends, to connect with the family, to connect with ex-colleagues that could help her to make a better decision, because these people that surround you, they are not emotional about it. Even your wife, your husband, they know the whole story, but they don't have the emotional connection to this offer. So I guess it's a great way to, one, take your time, ask people around, and make your decision from a more rational perspective. So that's always my piece of advice, definitely. So yeah, market knowledge. Sorry. Second one is about managing your emotion. Third one is a big one. It's about lack of preparation. You know,
Mm.
if you prepare even just for an hour, where you get your story right with the context, as we said, and the result, you get some tangible facts of outcome of your work, then you can make a story far better than not preparing for it. Preparing is also about figuring out if the company is for you, trying to get some insights about the company. Same story like with this candidate I had. She was hesitant about these two offers, and I made some research for her. You know, as recruiters, we have access to some databases about the market and comparing companies' situations to see if they've lost people, so their attrition rate, to see if they are growing. These sort of stats can help make a better decision when you are hesitant. So when you go to an interview and you have all these stats in mind, you can also ask better questions rather than asking the traditional what's your company's culture, where the employer will sell the best of the best and maybe sometimes selling the dream. You can ask a question like, okay, so I have compared your company to two of your competitors, and in terms of attrition rate, it seems like your attrition rate is higher. How do you explain that? And then you get straight into the the important details, and you challenge the interviewer as well. So as we said earlier, it goes both ways. It's not a one-way exam, right? An interview is a meeting between expectations, and that's your role as a candidate to also challenge the interviewer.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And when I work with producers, one of the insights that we try to focus in on is whoever asks the better questions in the conversation controls the conversation, because you can frame things differently. You are in control of how things are positioned and presented if you're the one who's asking questions. Now, that doesn't mean you go into it trying to like win a debate or look like you're smarter. It's just knowing that that is a tool at your disposal so that you can find out the information that you need to and also control the flow of the conversation.
Yeah, true. That
Eh,
shows that goes to show that you have done your research, and you're already showing a quality as well. But most of all, you're trying to figure out if the company is right for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes,
And you won't understand that if you're just reading their about us page on their website. You have to
yes,
ask those kinds of questions.
true. That's why recruiters are biased because they have an interest in making sure that you will uh, take their offers, right? However, my approach, and even though we have some sort of interest in the decision making process, my approach is more long term. I know that I can lose short term, but I will always win long term. So that's my approach. And I had this exact same experience with another candidate where he had two offers and he was not going towards my offer. And I told him, first of all, that's great that you have two options. You'll be in a better position rather than just accepting the first offer. And second of all, do your research, do your due diligence, maybe ask people in your network that are working in both companies and get their feedback. Um, Sometimes I have feedback myself from these candidates, so I can provide that as well and make the decision that you feel the most comfortable with. Jeff Bezos gives a piece of advice to make like hard decisions, which is about think about yourself in a few years' time at the end of your life and ask yourself the question, will you have any regrets about that decision of taking a job or not taking a job? And generally, that helps a lot figuring out which opportunity is best for you.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice, especially this idea of being willing to let short-term opportunities go, knowing that it's in the best interest of long-term success, which is a very difficult pill to swallow sometimes.
It is definitely, especially when you start your career, you want to get all the wins to prove yourself. But after a while, you get the experience and you get to understand that it's a long term game, especially in my case, because that's my own company, that's my brand, that's my name on the door, right? So I don't want to ruin that, and I know that I will not always win, and that's fine. Short term I might lose, but long term I know that I'm winning.
You know, Jeremy, when I work with agency sales leaders, there are generally two pipelines that we always talk about. And this is not going to be groundbreaking information here or a groundbreaking perspective, but it's the sales pipeline and it's the talent pipeline. The sales pipeline takes 99% of their focus normally. The talent pipeline is 1%. And then when it's 1% focus, that means that they're only ever reactionary, hiring when it's too late or when it's just about to be too late. And they're not proactively picking from a candidate pool that they've been building over time. So I'm sure a lot of them end up in a position where they're forced to now hit the job market. They haven't prepared themselves. They don't know what's available. The same thing that worked for them 5 years ago isn't going to work now when they hit the job market, but they don't know that yet. They're about to find out the hard way. What would you tell this agency sales leader who maybe has never worked with a recruiter before and is unsure if this is a good fit for them? If they should just go their traditional, put a job on a job board and wait for resumes to come in versus working with someone like you on the recruitment side? You know, what would you say to them to help sway or inform their decision?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, I think your analysis of this industry with two pipelines is great. We always think about the sales pipeline. We don't necessarily think about what's going to produce those sales. And that's what you call talent pipeline, right? So I think, yeah, it's a great analysis. You walk on two legs, and these are the two legs of this industry.
Sales and talent.
Exactly. So another thing you have to consider is that in this insurance brokerage industry in Canada, it is extremely competitive. So once you hire someone, you generally hire that person from a competitor. That means you get market shares straight away. It's as easy as that. Um, to me, it's not sink or swim, it's sink or hire in this industry. If you want to grow, you have to hire. Um, so yeah, it is critical to always get a finger on the pulse. And a good way to do it is, as you said, you can always post a job ad, but um, it's fine, but you have to do the work, the groundwork of calling all the applicants, of networking with these people, whether it is for the short term of hiring them straight away or just in the long run to connect as a person. And maybe if you're not ready to hire right now, at least you know that there is one person there that you think is great and you could hire at some point, and you can actually touch base with this person from time to time and go for a coffee, etc. That's called networking. The other thing is to connect with people who have the finger on the pulse. Guess who? The recruiters. So you have to connect with these people, surround yourself with the best recruiters out there. You have to filter out some of them, as we said earlier. They are not all great. That's fine, but do your due diligence of uh, challenging them, trying to understand if they know the market, if they have market knowledge of like insights, as we discussed earlier, about salary studies, about attrition rates, about do they know the competition as well. To me, like that, this is all the positive value that you can bring as a recruiter. It's obviously knowing the right person at the right time so that your client can make a hire and win. But it's also about providing the market knowledge and building a strategy that is based on this market knowledge.
Yeah.
A lot of the clients, and I understand they are busy with their sales pipeline. They are busy with their maybe their own employees, and a lot of them are being, as you said, reactive instead of having a proactive strategy, talent strategy. They are being reactive. So you have to find a way to be in a more proactive way, and proactive mode, I would say, and recruiters can help you with that. And even though, as we said earlier, if you're not hiring straight away, it's always good to have a chat with them from time to time, and maybe one day they will have the right person for you, and you'll go and hire that person.
No, that's a fantastic insight, Jeremy. And one other thing I'll add, because I'm not afraid to go into the hard waters and say something that's going to be a shocker. Um, Recent information that I've seen has shown that the cost of one bad sales hiring mistake can be anywhere between 3 to 5 times that person's annual compensation.
True.
And the worst part of it too is that, okay, fine, it's 3 to 5 times their annual compensation, but guess what? They're a bad hire. It also means that they're no longer going to be on the team or shouldn't be on the team anyway. So where my mind goes with, investing in recruitment, because I imagine some folks, maybe even on smaller or mid-sized teams, might be hesitant to say, well, this is a level of investment we're not used to. What I would say to you is that the level of investment required to find a good candidate with a good recruiter is far smaller than the cost it's going to be to make a bad hire when you do this on your own.
100%. Yeah, there is a LinkedIn study about that. Actually, I can share it with you later, and it's just huge. It's not only a cost of opportunity of missing out on a good person. It's also the cost of that it has on your team. For instance, if you make a bad hire, you can actually turn your team into a bad team as well, because spirit is not high anymore, and yeah, it can ruin in a way your culture in the short term
Yeah.
until until you make a decision.
So there we go. We have both the rational and the emotional reasons. Rational, it's going to cost you 3 to 5 times more to make a mistake than it is to work with a recruiter, at least. And on the emotional side, okay, fine, you hired somebody, it didn't work out, but there's a big risk to the team morale, the team environment, and you might lose some clients along the way because the person you hired, didn't do a good job serving them, representing your brand, and
It's
actually hurting your reputation, which is you can't put a number on that.
true. Yeah, you're exactly right.
What I want to
That's
talk about, sorry,
five
go ahead.
or six times the cost of the annual salary, because it involves a lot of aspects of your business.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Why don't we talk a little bit about predictions about the future? So you've been in the recruitment space for 10 years, laser focus on insurance for the last going on 2+ years now. Where does your mind go with looking ahead? Let's say the next 5 to 10 years. What should producers be mindful of? What should agency leaders and brokerage owners and these types of people, what should they maybe consider or be expecting in the mid to long term future?
So to me, there's a few things. The number one that comes to mind is technology. Technology is everywhere, and even AI now. So we talk a lot about that, but the conversion rate is still low, I believe. I mean, from my perspective, from what I can hear from candidates, I can tell you that some clients, some companies are still not up to date. And even if we are not even talking about AI, just using the systems properly, to me, is a big step, right? I'll give you an example. When I was working for different recruitment companies in the past, I realized that we have systems and we have invested in technology, right? However, I realized that most recruiters, most users of these technologies are not even using them properly. And we are not even talking about AI here. We are talking about using your system, putting your notes correctly in the system so that you can leverage from that information. And for instance, is first you have to have a system that is well architected. Okay, so your architecture classifies your information in a way that you can reuse it. Okay, so once you have your architecture done, You have to get your users using your system with the right architecture. And that's where it goes wrong, because people in even in like huge companies, they are still using Word, they are still using their own note system to take some notes about their clients, about whoever they do business with, and the information in the end is not classified, is not shared, and we can't leverage from it. So that's what I did with my company. So before I launched the business, I decided, okay, that's going to be my first mission, is to build a system where the architecture allows me to leverage that information. So basically, I'll give you an example because it might sound a bit weird or not.
Abstract. Yeah.
The example is the following. The other day I was working. One of my clients called me and said, "Jeremy, we lost one of our key team members. He's a director of our transportation division, and he's a key member of the team, a key component of the company. He manages the whole division. How are we going to do now that he's going?" And basically, I was able in less than an hour, I was able to pull up a list of candidates that are living in Montreal, that speak French and English, that have an expertise in transportation, and that can do new business. And without this architecture of the system I was talking about, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And most recruitment agencies out there, they don't do that. They say, yes, we have AI, we are using AI for talent mapping, talent intelligence, all that jazz, right? All the nice concepts you want to sell. But to me, start with the basics, have your system, and use your system. And then you can leverage from it. And I did it, I coded my system myself. It's quite basic, but I know it works, and I know I can be on top of these sort of requests from clients.
No, I love that. And so often we have this misconception that to be a master means that you have some specialized level of skill that nobody else has, when really to be a master just means that you know the fundamentals very well and you implement them at every opportunity. It's the
Sure,
consistency of the fundamentals. So I love what you're saying.
100%. So just that was a long answer. So short answer is basically have the technology and use the technology properly. So you'll probably have to train your employees so that they use the technology correctly. And then you can leverage it and be more efficient with your clients and provide more value. So
Amazing.
that's one big thing I see in the future, because it's not up to date yet. It should be, but it's not. So I guess a lot of owners can make a difference by training their staff on these topics.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And it's funny, it's not the most shocking answer in the world when I say, "What's your prediction about the future?" And the thing that came out of your mouth was technology, but it doesn't have to be shocking to be true. So I think
Yes.
it's amazing that you focus in on that aspect of it and how companies, forget about AI and all the buzz terms that are relevant now in our space, in our industry. So much of it is we already have tools we've been using, but we don't use them properly. So I like what you're saying about companies receiving a big competitive advantage
Mm,
just by optimizing and using what they already have.
yeah, true.
I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about this broker salary study that you pulled together. So I'm going to share it on the screen here. And, what was the genesis of this? What caused you to want to do this? What are the types of insights that you were able to receive when you went out and did your study?
Yeah. So as you know, as a recruiter, I speak to candidates every day. And one of the biggest questions I get from them is, what salary should I get or could I get from the market? And at every level of seniority, you will have this question. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do a study where I will be interviewing those candidates. I will gather the data. So I interviewed 600 people, insurance brokers across the Montreal region. And at the end of the day, I put that together into this guidebook. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just playing around with the layout.
That's,
Sorry, I'll go back to it.
uh, yeah, no problem,
I
no problem.
I should have warned you. I'm gonna remove myself again, so you can start sharing
Yeah,
insight about it.
no problem at all.
I
That's
should have
fine.
warned.
No, that's fine. So basically, yeah, that's what I did. I gathered the information from 600 insurance brokers in the industry across the Montreal region. And now we are able to provide a clear breakdown of the salary at every level, from junior entering the industry to senior and even directors. And we are able to do that on both sides, the personal lines and the commercial lines. So that, yeah, that's pretty much the idea.
That's fantastic, and it's such a needed insight too, because like we said time and time again in this conversation, there's so much information out there. It's so difficult to parse out what is true versus what is not true, or even understanding geographical implications, the type of role that you take on, and the different opportunities available. It's so confusing. It's so overwhelming, and having something that can help get firm on what is true and what is available, I think is a huge value add. Honestly, not just to people who are producers or who want to become producers, but I could see this being a huge advantage to agency owners. Uh, people who lead and manage brokerages, or if you have producers on your team, this seems like it would be a good asset for them to even just get a finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's useful on both sides. For the candidates, obviously, with the inflation happening, I mean, you want to know if you can get an increase of salary, if you are paid fairly as well, and if you can get a better deal, essentially. And for owners, if you go to market, you want to make sure that you get a good deal as well. You don't want to underpay your salary because it will expose you to the risk of losing them after a while, or you don't want to overpay them because, I mean, you want to have a fair deal, let's say it.
Last thing here, why don't you tell us a little bit about the job board that you have on your website?
Yeah, so basically that's the job page on my website. So you will find there all my jobs in the insurance space. Most of them, I should say, are in Montreal, both on commercial and personal lines, but you'll also find some of them in Ontario. I live in Ontario myself, in mid Ontario, so you'll find some jobs in Belleville and some other roles in Toronto as well.
All right, that's fantastic. And Jeremy, where can people go to learn more about you or even get in contact with you?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, the best way I think is LinkedIn, because I use LinkedIn every day. So it's a great way to connect with me, and we can even start a conversation there. I will always answer.
Yeah. And I'm going to flash your email up on the screen here as well. So I imagine people can contact you if they have recruitment questions, whether they're hiring or they're potential candidates. Jeremy at helloworldrecruitment.ca.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Jeremy, this was a true pleasure. Thank you so much for your time here.
Thanks, David. It was a pleasure as well.
All right.
See you next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.